Quick market video going through some stuff I'm looking at going into the next few weeks here. So starting off just with ES futures, new all-time high after a flash crash. And if you go back to 2020, it was a bit less of a crash, but similar in the way it didn't last very long. So I would not consider that a bear market, despite the technical statement of 20% more means you've entered a bear market. I look at more like 2022, obviously. That's slow, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. That is a grinding bear market because there was no liquidity, there was no buying. It was a very dull period. This didn't have time to be dull. This didn't have time to be dull. This was sharp and carry on. So if we look at 2020, we got right back to new all-time high, back test, a little bit of console, and then away we go. So I'm not saying that's going to happen here, but just something to think about. We could just continue on a little bit more, but I think maybe because of seasonality, whatever the case may be, we get a situation where that's happening at some point. Maybe just some sideways action. Looking at RTY, I mean, this is the one that, let's just say we take a pause and a breather elsewhere and we just go sideways. This is a laggard. We know this. We had this huge run up 2020, this zone here built for 2021, and then new high, fail. A couple years go by, and now we come back to a high at the beginning of, actually the end of 2024, just poked its head up for all-time high. Failure, rejection, came back down, did not make a new low. So on the highest time frames, on the monthly, look at this. Like bear volume aside, looking at that, this was like a moment of like a technical reversal volume capitulation type situation, let's say. But you have to like the way that looks. Yeah, I would prefer to have some more volume, but July is not over, so this can come up, and it's just a matter of where this chart needs to go. Are we going to come back up, double, triple top? Maybe it's possible, but I feel like we're going to test it or do something more this time around on this chart. So always on top watch, especially with your small cap names, IWM, however you want to play the momentum. But this is one that I have to keep my eye on, especially if the other two, NASDAQ and ES, if they do start going sideways at some point. All right, I'm going to go through a couple names just because it's what I'm looking at. So which one am I going to do first here? You know what? I'm going to go through Tesla, I suppose. I don't know why I keep getting these anchors. I have my anchors drawn with one line, but for some reason, despite how many times I change it in the settings, it keeps giving me the upper two bands and the lower two bands. So let's just focus on the blue bands here, and I'll hide them. But we've maintained above the recent low, we've maintained above that anchor, and then going to the all-time high, we have been reacting and settling around that anchor. So there's a move coming here. It's imminent. Like, okay, a failure, just of this range, GP here, test the lows here. Does it make sense? I think it would have to be something really bad for that to happen. The chart just looks so structured, and it just, you have to think that we're gonna at least come up and test this 370 zone again. It just seems that way to me. Well, at least that's what I think I would play for. If something comes along, new information, then we'll deal with it. I think the key is really clearing this candle right here and this one right here. This is when we got, I think, some of that bad news. But this is something that it can do in a morning. So I'm not too concerned about it, but it's more about the volume right here. And we've traded in it, gone above it, traded in it, held higher low. The structure is nice, but this is some key resistance. So we want to get rid of that. My God, what a mess. Let me just get rid of these things here. So I'm not going to waste too much time on it. This is a zone for Tesla. This is a zone for Tesla. Clear resistance levels. Boom, boom, boom. And this will be the first one we obviously would charge for. And beyond that, let's just say earnings or guidance is something special, something great, robo-taxi, whatever the hell it is. Like, doesn't take long for Tesla to do this. Look at this right here. How many days was it? Let's give this a little measurement. From this low to this high, it's like a 50% move. And what was it? 1, 2, it's like 3 weeks. Okay? So that's what Tesla does, especially after long periods. You can look at this breaking like a triangle or like an inverse head and shoulders type situation. This type of trend line from the top here, and you'd get most likely once you probably surpass this high right here, that 370. You could look at getting one of these types of breaks where it's just extending. Obviously, you have to deal with the zone, but I'm talking about the explosiveness in which the move happens. So that's Tesla, and I'm gonna look at. Let's do everyone's favorite right here. I'm not gonna waste time on NVDA. There's not much to say. I think it's gonna get to 180, 183 or so, and I wouldn't try to guess if it's not going to go higher. I think it probably definitely could. Matter of what the market's doing, and a matter of how strong semis are for that day, or if we start seeing intersector rotation, whatever the cases may be. It's performed amazing. It's a double from April. So that's crazy when you talk about NVDA doing something like that again. It's tough to discount it. Daily RSI is in the 70s, high 70s, so they could push this thing more. But at the same time, if you're in, you ride it. I don't know how much juice is left. I guess we can also see if the flow can push it. I've seen some pretty exaggerated flow. I like it up until maybe like I said, the 180s, potentially 185. But I've seen flow into the 300s for 2026. So obviously there's some large positions changing, and when they do start getting those heavy rolls in, that's when usually you see maybe some aggressive type moves like we saw back in this period. I remember some days where I could just see all the rolling, and it was all for future, which was good, but it takes a toll when it's happening, when you're talking about millions and millions and millions of dollars every sweep. So just something to think about with NVDA, because likely that's an event that's probably going to be approaching. I'm going to just touch on Netflix here. After an amazing run, I want to remind everybody, look at this, head and shoulders, beautiful. Fake bear move, bought up, negate, new all-time high. That was just right after earnings, because they were not at all-time highs. They were just in that point where you're going to negate this right shoulder. I personally think 90% of the time it's negated once you get a back above and close above the neckline. But, it did that on this day right here. So that would have been a nice signal if somebody wanted to go long, flag, gone. But as we come here to new all-time high, earnings was here. So we already started to come down a bit from earnings. What's it going to shape up now? We'll see. I have it taken from the previous all-time high early in February to the all-time high, and my fib lines up for like 1170, 1160 GP to hit, which is kind of like back testing this cluster here, which is the first level of consolidation after making an all-time high. So it does make sense. I would not count Netflix out. I don't know how damning their information was, but it couldn't have been that bad, because we would have seen a much more drastic move, in my opinion. So just pump the brakes a little bit on Netflix right now. See what happens when it gets to this level, if it does, and see when the buyers come back. If it loses this level, then we can talk about a different thing. But I'm not going to talk about it right now. Let's go on to Google, because they've got earnings pretty soon. I think on Tuesday or Wednesday. So yeah, Wednesday. Look, pretty simple. We have this all-time high that was made in July 2024, still as an overhead resistance, but we are right up here dealing with this cluster from all-time highs from earlier this year. It's pretty clean levels. We have this 192 level first, and then we have obviously all-time high. This zone has been a notable area for it, and it kind of once, twice tested it. And listen, Google has been a dramatic event, okay, this entire time. Intraday, random bad news, bad news, bought up repeatedly, even after all that April drama. So there's demand there. No matter what, they've been buying it and taking it higher. It's not something to question, in my opinion. Doesn't mean it goes to all-time high, but you have to play it that way. That's the way I'm thinking about all of these mega caps, especially the ones that have not made new highs. Amazon, very similar, even stronger in my opinion, does not have a previous all-time high to contend with aside from the one earlier this year. It's in that top zone. This is the candle I have, just defining the zone pretty much. It's a weekly candle, but I have it on the daily here. Anyways, you can see where we are. We're pretty much halfway through this zone, working our way through this cluster here. Once above 233, the next shot obviously is the shot that it's going to go for all-time high break once it gets above that 240, 250. You look at the structure. Yes, Google, Amazon. You can count so many names that have been forming. You called it a wedge. We were drawing it this way, calling it a wedge. We were drawing it up to here, calling it a wedge. Yes, it's a rising wedge, but the chances of this wedge playing out so obviously, it can happen. But again, that's not what I'm playing for, because if you start to see that happening, then sure, pick your best bet and buy some shorts. No big deal. But right now we're looking at the structure, new zone. So pop, consolidate, build the zone, pop, again doing it, building zones higher and higher. What's the next step? Maybe another one here for a couple of days and then gone? We'll see. After Amazon, we'll quickly touch on this guy here. Like, what do you want to call it? One of my favorite plays, kind of like I showed in Netflix, is when you get these head and shoulders, right around here, or they can come back down and squeeze, but we've seen them come in, little pop off this neckline, start to build, start to round, and then gone. So that's the type of plays that draws in bears and they squeeze higher. And you can look at Meta. I wouldn't like to call it a cup and handle because I like it more rounded, but the same type of price action. And they say that the new high should not occur. Like, you shouldn't get a new high above the left side of your cup. Say what you want to say. I don't particularly care because this is just the world we live in. Sometimes they change a little bit, but those plays I've seen them time and time again work out. So I don't worry about that so much. Sometimes it's actually better if it makes a new high, because now you don't have to worry about that resistance as much as you have this new resistance. So the path is clearer to get up there. But let's just say this actually does play out, and on earnings is not so great. Then we do get that. Still, we have that cup and handle type of play available. But it's been such a strong name with high demand. It's tough to see a complete breakdown right now without something very, very detrimental. This area right here, the 633 line, has been pretty solid. Over here, it was a resistance here. When it was trying to come back up, rejected, held here. So let's see what happens if it does have a breakdown. And the technical retrace, more or less, would line up with that 60-40, 60-35 level. So it's not beyond the realm of possibility that it does happen. But even with this one here, I'm looking higher. Let's move on to where is it? There we go. This little guy, maybe you heard of him. Again, these damn anchors. Okay, just look at the blue line. They're annoying me, so I'm gonna just, I don't know why it's happening. TradingView sometimes has its own, I don't know, it's stubborn as hell. I'm just sick and tired of changing them. All right, so what do we have with Apple? Beautiful. Like, this is gorgeous that it's held this for so long. All right. First and foremost, let's just go to daily. I chart on 24 hours for my own reasons. This allows you to see the gaps. So this daily gap here is the one that, if you play, I make the joke about the gap rules are in effect, but basically it does happen quite often that they play like halfway through the gap. Like, I call it the 0.5. This might have been coming to the GP on this one day that went high. But the point is that the gap is notable because it's reacting to it. If you look at the bottom here, it's acted as a support inside of this pennant shaping up. So the next step is the top of this gap. Okay, that's the next step. If you care about moving averages, I mean, I don't live or die by them, but you can see that it's around the 100-day moving average right now, daily, and its price action is very nice and tight, right around there. We have the 50 and the 20 curling up. The 100 and the 200 are still declining, but either way, if we get up above this zone here, this gap fill, and then you have the 200-day, and then you have this GP. It's gonna be this is gonna be where the resist. Maybe it takes earnings to break through it. So maybe before earnings we get a nice couple days, and we kind of work around in here a bit and move higher. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. I'm not going to try to guess. There's so many possibilities of what it is, but we have our levels and we have the structure that we like. I mean, if you're playing tight, the first one obviously can be this break. I would say draw that VWAP comes into play. So I would maybe put it on your chart if you're into anchors, and just note that in that day that 0.5 and that anchor are pretty lined up. So just maybe it's going to be like one of your intraday high or low type reaction. However it happens, just keep that one there marked up. Okay. And if we do fail, this zone has proven to be higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low. So higher low, gone. Maybe test a little lower. Who knows? Like, there used to be a time where we would get big reactions any which way, down then up. We'll see. It's not impossible. Anything can happen here. But I will say that they've come out and said that there's going to be muted moves in earnings, like more than typical. So count that towards also seasonality, whatever it is. There is a chance that we do get more rotation into the megas, or we go into the small caps. We don't know. There's just so many areas where they've been putting their money these days. Crypto's been hot. We can't act like we know. I just look at it from the perspective of, if they're going to keep money in the market, which it seems like they're going to do, maybe some will come off right now and we coast a little bit, but there's still going to be enough players. So I'm not thinking about it the other way around. I'm thinking about, there's probably going to be some pockets of momentum. They're not going to leave all these mega caps in the lurch right here. They have this absolute launch pad set up for Apple, and they're not going to like just let this fade. I mean, could you imagine they did? That'd be amazing, because it'll just make the move bigger and bigger. But I think we've already put in a decent amount over here, going back for how many months now? 3 months. So it's 3-4 months. It's quite a bit. The move will be there. I'm going to just touch on some laggards. So where my list go? There we go. All right. Like Unity, back to 24 hours. Just looks so much better. Yeah. Because then you don't have to worry about those gaps yet. They're not going to go up, make a gap, and have to fill the gaps right away. I'm looking at this more from the perspective of, we got through all this cluster. So we started making some higher highs. We broke this consolidation structure here, which I don't know what you want to call it. Doesn't really matter to name a pattern for it. But now you have these actual next levels here. So you have this 43.50 area, you have this $50 area, and eventually you have that 58.50 area. This is the next one that you want to tackle. This is what you want to see. But you have this GP from the lows to the top to our highest peak in this lower range. That's approaching in the 41, 42 level. So maybe it sneaks up and tests this high here as well. But we can anticipate probably some consolidation up in this zone over here. But just to show you, this is one of the laggard moves. We've called it out a little while ago, and then it started to move. It's amazing how that happens, right? We were looking at it right around here. So when you see, these lower highs come in with nice volume, and then you see a nice period of consolidation, these are the ones you look for. You look for these plays here. You look for them. Then you see a couple of days, you want to see volume increasing. There you go. You have volume increased 1, 2, 3 days in a row. You actually couldn't ask for a better type of price action to get over a trend line, to get a higher high over this most recent resistance high, and then nice little flag, pop. This was, they don't all work out as beautiful as this one here, but you can plan to hope. So I'm going to show you a couple other laggards that I'm looking at. I have Lyft that I like. Now I know names like this can get killed by news, and there's so much tied to them. But let me just change the time frame here. Let me go to the monthly first, and then I'll go to the weekly. Just look at the tightness. Just look at what we're dealing with here, okay? You have so much more chart history to go. And that doesn't mean that we're getting back up to $90 right now. Maybe no time soon. But unless Lyft packs up and they're done tomorrow, and it's possible, I don't know their financials, you just think that after all of this constructive price action, just waiting, you just think that, there's going to be something. And even more specific, we see higher low, lower high. So they've been tightening, and then over here, a little bit of action. Last earnings, we've held this top zone nicely. That's what I'm talking about right here. So it didn't fade off like other times, okay? We have the opportunity now for more. So they've got earnings in a couple weeks. I still think we can probably make a nice little move before that, maybe to get near this trend line right here and be prepared for a move higher in Lyft. We were talking about these the other day, and then XYZ got included into the S&P 500, I believe, Friday night. So there you go. I'll show you a 24-hour chart. You see the move. You see the move where it is. So we still have some running to go to get to that trend line. Probably tomorrow or later this week, we're going to test this trend line. In the past, names that have, well, first of all, to get a name like this that's not doing a vertical, like a hockey stick, they're already telling you something. That's good. So now this is going to probably play catch up. So keep an eye on XYZ, Block, Square, whatever the hell they change their name to next. And keep an eye on PayPal, because they typically make similar moves or move together, since they are kind of like the same kind of company. Nice timing. I wish I really got a chance to get eyes on these earlier, but I didn't hear anything about these names in a long time at all. So last thing I would have thought was inclusion, but it is what it is. Another one that kind of reminds me of this one here, and for different reasons, is WDC. It's Western Digital. It's a semi. It's been a laggard, except for the fact that, look at this thing. Look what it's done recently. So I've been tracking it, this lower trend line, and you could draw another trend line over here. It's been going sideways since 2014. So we've got like 11 years here of sideways action. Let's go monthly for a second here. Look at this. Look at this chart. I don't care about what they do, who they're competing with. Just from the chart perspective, look at this chart. Look how perfectly it reacted off this trend line. Broke through this trend line, great sign. Now it's at this top trend line. All right, I don't know what's going to happen with this one, but just from those things alone, now we're going to need to see, it's at this trend line, so we're probably going to need to see some consolidation. They report next week as well. So, could it go higher? RSI, weekly RSI is already in the 70s. What's their daily RSI at? And it's cooled a little bit, so they started to move kind of sideways. but it was in the mid 80s, and now it's still, you know, mid to high 70s. Sorry. So I'm not going to worry too much about that because I've seen those types of RSI issues resolve themselves quickly in recent months. But this is one to keep an eye on. I personally lost sight of it because I saw it struggling all the time, and I forget which day I saw it. Maybe it was this day here. I'm like, oh, looks like another rejection. Didn't get back to it, but bought up obviously and gone. So it's a nice opportunity once this consolidation occurs, or once we see maybe some sideways action, build a zone. Like if we could see something like, you know, like this, I don't know. It's just something that you have to keep an eye on, but that would be ideal. Something that gives us that time for bands to catch up and for that move to really develop. The last one of these laggards that I'll talk about is INTC. Now, excuse me. INTC is one of those names where they've taken, like I'll show you on the monthly, they've taken an absolute beating. An absolute beating. And what do you want to call this? You want to call this a bear flag of some sort? Like look at this 6-month chart here. Now we don't chart on say. Let me go back to 3 months just to show you. Okay, 2000 bubble. There you go. Dead. Coming back up. Some success. Couldn't get back to the highs. Failed. Gone. Back down. Another push up. Lower high. Failed. Lower low. Could we get another push up just to sell again? It's quite possible. But you see, I love to see notable volume. And I think there's some narrative with this one here too. Let me just go back to like 1 month time frame first. We've been hanging around this zone for quite some time. I'm looking back where I've seen monthly consolidation like this, sideways, and then, came down. I mean, suppose you kind of have that in these situations here, but this one just seems to be building up a little more. Plus you have, again, onshoring semiconductors. People don't understand what it takes to actually create semiconductor chips. Building the factories is not a quick step. Debris, particles, construction particles take a long time to get rid, to be gone, to be filtered out through the air systems. So that affects the quality of what they are producing. So the higher yields go to the cleanest factories. So the longer a factory's around, the better it'll be. The newer it is, the longer it'll take. These guys have invested in and partnered up with a number of companies for factories in the US. They're well poised for the future. How long that'll be, we're yet to see, but I have to think they are in the running for being one of the winners in North America if the chip war does heat up. So INTC on watch. Obviously, we want to make a new high. Definitely want to clear this weekly candle from July 2024. That's a big one. And once that happens, we can start thinking about hopefully a solid run because it is building up a nice base. And if it needs longer, sure, give it longer. But they report this week, so I feel like we're going to get some sort of news that's going to give us some direction potentially, or just maybe even enough to build a zone right around here and then work our way higher the good old-fashioned way. Okay, I'm going to just go through some spec names. I like spec names, but it's easy to get carried away with them. So I have a very long list with many. I'm not going to go through them all. I'm just going to go through a couple just because I've seen where I've seen some flow and I like the structure. Now, these names have been cycled through. Okay, so IONQ, previous all-time high, consolidation, come back up, test that top zone. It's also a perfect back test of all-time high from 2021, like perfectly over here. So we built the zone right above. Again, another back test to that zone, and we're coming back up to the highs. They really worked their way through these names. You've got potentially a cup and handle, and also the handle is a cup and handle, both looking like they're going to break bull. It's a nice setup. It's a nice setup for more. You can draw your extensions however you want to do it, but I'm not going to go through that right now. It's just a nice setup. And you can see RGTI, similar situation, had a nice move. There you go. QBTS, another one. Nice move, nice consolidation, broke the upper trend line, going back for an all-time high again. They just have a buzz, these names. I'm not going to speculate onto, when they're going to say that they're not achieving the quantum capabilities that they are supposed to yet. Whatever, we'll deal with that later. People want in, so they're buying them. They're buying them, and when they buy them heavy and hard. There's no stopping it. They're not shy on these sweepers. I've seen days where countless amounts of sweepers are coming in. Even in some of these horrible days where you think, why is somebody flushing their money? There's money that is going into, especially these three names. So if that's your kind of play, you like that kind of hype, those are good ones for you. Here's a couple smaller ones. So there's SES. Now this chart has a ways to go. It's a small name, $500 million micro cap. But I've seen the odd flow in recent months. This is one of those plays where you can multiply your dollars rather quickly, even just to a move to try to take out this high from here. That's more than the double. And I'm only mentioning it because volume. That's what's different on this chart now. All that volume. I looked for that. Because I look for that. You know who looks for that? People who play massive sweep. So when you start seeing flow on a tiny little name like this, they're doing it because they see these types of things. So this is one of those names that can get going. Another one, AES, they're both electrical something. This one had some flow as well. This one's bigger. It's about $10 billion market cap. So maybe you could feel a little bit better about swinging this one here for a longer term, but you can see nice area, nice base, and it's got a ways to go, It's got a ways to go. You could draw out as many targets as you want. I don't know, I'm not looking to draw targets right now for anybody. I'm just trying to go through the charts that I like. And if you guys are interested in it, you can go add them to your watch list. But look, even if you want this high here, you have till $16 plus for the GP. So that's already a nice move. And you have up to here, what are you going to have? 13 to almost $18. Again, depending what you're trading and how you trade, you can monetize that. So I'm not going to waste too much time on that one. It's there for you. SMR. All right, these are the plays. I think I've explained it. For people who pay attention in the chat, I'm going to say it again regardless, okay? I like these plays where it shows momentum. Right here, you have divergence on the new all-time high, come down, and then it starts shaping up. Like, what's it shaping up? Oh, I know, head and shoulders. Look at that. And you can draw another line here if you want to, but you can just envision it. You don't have to. I just do this because it's easy to recognize. But these are my favorite types of plays. When I see this right shoulder type tease, bears start piling in, or at least some selling starts to happen. In this case, it wasn't so much because there was a pump on this name, but it takes nothing to get to all-time highs once they abandon this bear play right here, and it's no longer head and shoulders. And you can see it in Oklo, which is another one that moves like it. You see, we kind of had the same situation going here, and now we're moving on up. And those two play back and forth with each other. So have to expect this one here to also make another all-time high. And then there's like LTBR, which is already also getting that nice break from that consolidation right there. What's the other one? NNE, I believe. These are small companies, guys. But they're in this nuclear space, and it's been hot, okay? It's right there. The move is right there. Like, look at this. It's a clear level. It's there right now. So if you like these types of small cap moves, they're nice because you could play them with equity. Some of them have options, obviously, but that's up to you. However you want to play any one of these names. And you have these other guys who've just been crazy. Been on a tear. DNN, these are the uranium names. UEC, CCJ. Some of them still have juice. Some of them are just going to keep walking up. There's some nice volume on these names. They're a nice size market cap, and sentiment is on their side. So I would give more of the uranium names the cool down period right now. I'll give them a chance to cool down some of them because they're less sexy than those SMR type plays. So I feel like they'd abandon these ones here first. But again, volume, 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 volume. Look at this. That's what's different about these charts right now. All right, new hype cycle, whatever it is. You have to think this one's going all-time high. Be nice to get a flag into earnings and then go for it. But we'll see. Can only follow so many names. So pick what you like. Here's a couple more in the aerial space. We have ACHR, Archer, Aviation. I mean, look, all-time high is upon us. It's done, whatever you want to call this, same situation as like an inverse head and shoulder setup. I mean, I'm not going to call it that because I prefer it to be on a different angle or a cleaner neckline, but the price structure is moving similar. And it's right now, again, look at this volume. After a nice volume here, volume, yes, some bear volume, but we're above it now with some nice bull volume as well. And they had some news here. Joby's had news as well. And look at Joby. All right, that's a new all-time high. That's like a pretty parabolic move we're getting to here. They got earnings coming up in a couple weeks as well, so maybe we see some console into that event so they can cool down. ASTS has been on a tear as well. This one still has more juice because it had that nice console already, so maybe something like that's going to happen in Joby. But, Archer and even Lunar is behind, another one of these types of names. There's a bunch. I'm not going to go through all of them. If that's what you like, these are the kind of like the more liquid names within that sector, but there's a ton more. I think RDW I can show you as well. Like, look at another nice setup. If you've been paying attention to any of these names, these setups, almost all of them are playing out. I would say I like this one a little less because I hate to see a huge bear volume spike, but look at that. We're above it already again. So it was bought up pretty well. And maybe, I don't know which companies are going to be the future when they sort out all this flying car shenanigans, but and aerial vehicles and who needs them for which sector, that's going to get sorted out. And we'll see that one day. But for now, clearly it's a period of them buying the hype and trying to acquire as much as they can of these companies. A few more here. MP, like, I don't remember what the hell the news was. Bio, I don't know. But his materials names are pretty hot. A lot of them are hot. I've only been tracking MP, and this one here I like, USAR. There's no volume here, but there's significance to this high. They've played off of it. Lower high, so higher low. Lower high, higher low. Lower high, higher low. Breaking that in this zone from this first candle of significance after this console, but there was virtually no volume since its inception here. So it's only in recent months that we've had attention on this name. It's building a nice base, and I have some flow here for it. They've been buying it. So look for higher prices on this one here. This is one that maybe you're going to look back on later on and say, wasn't a sexy name, but they were buying it. And then LegalZoom. Why I'm showing you this one? Well, it's tiny market cap, 1.6 billion. But I like these types of plays. And I just went through my list quickly to show you some charts. I have a ton of more names on there, some of them with better setups, but these ones I was just able to show you quickly. These have been playing out. These top lines, look at this beautiful, like you're looking at Unity. Sophie had something like this. They've been playing out. All right. The stock's like under $9. If you wanted to buy 10 shares, whatever. I'm just saying, like, you don't have to buy it, obviously. I would never tell anyone to buy anything. But I'm saying just from the standpoint of how the charts have been playing out, like, look, they're using this even as support right now. Above all that, if I was to turn on a volume profile, you'll see a shelf here. See? So we're nearing this shelf here. So once we get above like 950, gonna get some thin air. Like, don't be surprised that you check back on this one here in a couple months and it's been a double. All right, I'm gonna show you APLD. Get rid of that volume profile. This one here is another one of those names where, yeah, I had the benefit of news, but like, look at the chart here. All this, can't even see the volume. All right, come over here. Volume increasing starting now. Okay, here we are. Pop, fade, back test, higher low. Pop again here on some massive volume after grinding up. People think, oh, we're gonna fall. Deal announced CoreWeave, I think it was, and that like very very big notable volume pop, and they continued it, and it went a little parabolic. In a couple of days, we were at like 86 RSI, and then this is the after a move like that, you want to see this. Okay, better if you see it like just like this, but in these small names, that you can't expect to have this tight perfection of console. It doesn't happen all the time, but take what you can get. It's the higher low. You know, if I was to draw, you know, I guess I'm not going to like the way I draw these fibs, but I don't give a damn. Look at that. Reverse GP, however you want to say it. I call it, if you draw it this way here, it just, that's how fibs work. They're there. So there's perfection in imperfection. And this zone has been notable. Came down, tested this zone, it's popping off of it. So you have to like what you see here. You have to like the potential for more. Very simple. Another one that kind of was like this, and a couple other names, ASPE Isotopes. I think they're involved in healthcare, not healthcare, health tech. And I think they're also involved in semiconductors because isotopes are something that's pretty broadly used these days. So they might be getting extra hype. But look, okay, all-time highs on this chart. All-time highs. The tops, test, divergence high, consolidate, pop up again, pop, pop, and was that for nothing? I don't know. We'll see. You have to think there's going to be more. And there's tons of charts like this. Tons. There's a lot of action out there. I would not be thinking, let me just go to NASDAQ for a second here. I would not be thinking that we should be preparing for doom. Might get some console, but there's plenty of places for it to go. There's plenty of places for it to go. I haven't even touched on crypto, and I don't want to get into it. But I just want to say, look at BTC. What is that? Detriment, all-time high, beautiful console. It can be a little messy. I don't know why I have this. Oh, I guess it hit my targets here for extensions. Anyways, Ether. Look at this. That's not going to make an all-time high. They've been buying, well, I don't know about all-time high right now, but at least out of this zone here, they've been buying this one here and its ETFs like mad recently. Which one is it? ETHA? Here you go. This is, look at this. I've been sharing it from in this cluster here. They have been buying this like crazy. Look at the volume. ETHE, ETHE, same thing, but look at the volume difference between ETHE and ETHA. Like, you notice, this is the one that they're playing. Same with IBIT for BTC. You could see the volume here. This is the one they're playing. I'm not going to go through all those names. You know, Hood, been on a tear, lots of hype. Maybe this one's going to have a little bit of tragedy to its name for a bit because there was some talk of it getting included, and I don't believe it was. You know, Circle, again with these damn anchors. Circle, like, don't think you know what's going to happen with this name because they'll push it any direction, any day. That's what's clear about this sort of thing right now. And this stable coin nonsense that they've been talking about, I don't think too many people understand it. So probably going to get a lot more volatility in those types of plays, especially new IPOs like that. It's wild to see what they did, but now they're just going to keep getting messed with. I'm not going to go through all of these other ones. I like this Galaxy play. I've been sharing it. Just some nice. Is that the whole chart? I thought there was more for some reason. I don't know. I guess it's pretty fresh, unless my TV is lagging. Because usually there's a little dinosaur there if it was a fresh IPO. Anyway, I don't remember this moment, but Galaxy, they've been buying it. A couple more they've been buying, but not going to go through those. Let me just quickly look at other sectors. I'm not going to go through China, even though those names are looking really good. I'm trying to just keep it to where I can manage the amount of things that I look at. EV, the only EV that I'll play is Tesla. I don't care about the rest of them, to tell you the truth. I'd rather deal with just that one. I just want to look at some banks here. So XLF, like look at this. You know, there's not going to be any tragedy with banks sitting up here at highs. They bought this dip quick. There's not going to be any tragedies there. What's JPM doing? Look at that. MSC. Okay, so there's no fear if the banks are at highs. Simple as that. So fear is not even something we should think about. Caution always because of where we are, but there's no imminent danger for catastrophe. I think we just have to keep playing based on the setups that we see. And I think that it's going to start for us with some of these guys here. I don't remember if I touched on AMD, so I'm just going to go to it quickly right now in case I didn't. This one here, kind of like the way I said WDC was a laggard, this one here has this 2021 high that it's going to contend with soon. Then it's got this GP from this low to the all-time high. We can even see what that looks like, probably right at it from this low. So we're dealing with it. So maybe we're going to get a more explosive move that's going to come also to here because we do have this local high. But I think you could start to see 175 possibly into earnings, which is just in like 2.5 weeks, I believe, maybe even more than that. So they've had a lot of buying volume. Look, volume is nice, nicer than it was throughout this entire period here, but not notably higher, still actually lower. So just keep that in mind. But I think AMD is one of those names that does play like a true laggard, maybe for intersector rotation, maybe when NVDA starts to cool off a little bit, they will come probably into AMD. Just because it's been strong, shown demand, ton of good news, and that's probably going to reflect in their earnings. So they probably can provide us some nice information based on all those companies they said that are using their chips. Maybe they could put a monetary value on that, what that means for revenue, future revenue. So if they give some nice guidance, then, you know, we can be looking at AMD 160 to new all-time high pretty quickly. Anyways, that's all I'm going to do for tonight. It's my first time doing one of these videos, so you can give me any feedback you like. Peace.